Okay, so let me show you how to get started in this assignment with using Maya. I have the perspective viewport open, and the assignment mentions a few things. Let me see. You know, it's pretty much a plane with some, vertices moved. It doesn't have to be anything too fancy. A wall, a L-shaped wall with a hole on it to indicate maybe a window, an egg-shaped character, and what looks like it could be a table. I'm kind of flexible on the techniques you use. What I'm looking more, this is a simplistic assignment. What I'm looking more on this assignment is to have you, number one, practice with a simple scene. And learn and practice more with materials and light, which is the focus that I think that it should have. So let's get started with modeling the plane. So let's go here on the plane and click and drag. And on the settings for the plane, let's just create maybe 20 by 20 subdivision. So let's change it here to 20, and I don't know why I'm not able. There you go, 20 by 20, and press enter. The idea is that now I go to vertex mode, right click, vertex mode, and I can grab any of these guys and move them. Okay, the only problem that you're seeing there is that when you move a vertex up, it starts dragging very sharp when the assignment kind of calls for something a little bit more smooth. So I'm going to undo Control Z, and I'm going to double click on the move tool settings, and what I'm going to do is look for the soft selection area, and I'm going to turn that on, and what that does, oh, it's way too big. What that does, it gradually kind of pulls the geometry in a soft way. Let's see, let me put it, I'm going to put it around 14, 15 and show you what happens. You see that as I pull the geometry now, instead of grabbing the, making it like a little spike, now it's a little bit more round. Let's make it 8 so that you can see. And it's just gradually shifting that the surface, right? It doesn't look like a spike anymore, but like as a curves, curves on the surface. That is what soft selections does. It moves, smooths the area around whatever you moved. Okay, so we have the ground, and let me go to the other side. So next we're going to add the L shape part. It could be something simple as a box. So I'm going to make a box here, go up, and for the sake of this this example, I'm going to go to polycube over here and maybe make 3 divisions, or maybe 2 to keep it simple. That way on the on the width, that way I have only 2 sides there. Maybe even I could maybe do even more if I wanted to, but the idea is that I'm only gonna work on, and I'm kind of zooming in here, gonna work on one side now. So I'm going to go on face mode over here. Okay, and I'm going to extrude. This is the extrude tool that's going to allow you to pretty much pull that out. Oops, pull that out with selecting the move tool, and you can do a quick cut there. Ideally you will have the same amount of subdivisions than you have here, but this is a very short exercise, so we don't need to go too much in depth. Okay, and then to cut the hole over there, we're going to use booleans. So I'm going to go create another square that kind of represents the window or the opening that I'm going to have with the move tool, this one here. I'm going to move over there and just kind of make it intersect. Oops, sorry about that. Intersect all the way to make sure that it goes all the way to the back through. to make sure that it creates that hole, right? So I'm going to select next. I'm going to right click, go back to object mode, and with the wall selected, I'm going to hold the shift key and select the cube also. And then under the menu, the modeling menu, I'm going to go mesh, booleans, and difference. That's the one we're going to do to cut. And use the defaults and hit apply. That should do, you know, little cut there. We have some triangular shapes there. Don't worry, that's because of the way we build, you know, just this wall with so low polygon resolution, but for the exercise will be just fine. The other thing that the exercise calls for is a table. You know, you could actually create a table with maybe let's see what happens with a cylinder, right? And I believe, I am not sure if we could do that this way too, you know, maybe doing the base like this, right? And or we could also use another cylinder, right? That because this one is kind of hollow there, so you could maybe use few more subdivisions over here on the bottom, and then using the same technique that, oh sorry, I keep doing that, Control R, using the same technique that you just learned about with the soft selection. You could either extrude, or you know, you could do, let's see, right click, go to vertex. You could select that bottom row of vertices, and you could scale it up if you want. You know, there's many ways to achieve that part. Oop. Let's turn soft selection to off, and you could, you know, maybe make the base like this, you know, the bottom part of it. You could also turn soft selection on and make it much smaller, maybe 3 or so, and nope, it has to be way smaller than that. Let's make it 0.60, see what happens, you know, maybe like that, you know, and then put this one on top. That would be one way to achieve this, or you can use splines too if you want. Remember, this is not a modeling assignment, so I'm not that concerned about which technique you actually apply. I'm more concerned about the materials that are coming next, okay? And this is better to do it on wireframe mode on the top view, so let's move this guy away. The X-shape guy is pretty simple. You just create a sphere over here, and then you can move it there. You could right click, go vertex, and I would do that on one of the side views instead, so that you get a nice clean selection, and turn that soft selection on to a point where you kind of start selecting different areas, and it creates that kind of smaller look at the top. You can either use the move tool like this or the scale tool. You know that you can always, you know, grab a section and get the scale tool and kind of decrease that. So you can just refine it until, you know, you get a nice shape that you like. So I'm gonna quickly move to the next section, okay? Perspective. Let's go in the perspective view and close here, which is materials, right? On the materials, it's over here. We just need to play with a few of the materials that you have there. Don't use the default Lambert, because then everything that you put on that, notice that it's gray. This is how things are born in the in the environment. So if you do want to have a Lambert, just create a new one, or create a blend maybe. The idea is, Lambert, notice how the icon over here looks like it's very dull, very matte. While on the other hand, let's apply this one to the egg shape so that you see. Notice how the egg shape now has a little bit of a highlight. That means that it now has a little bit of shine, which the Lambert does not provide. Okay, so from there, just get creative. The whatever you have over here, let's double click, and then you get the attributes over here on the side. So I'm going to close the hypershade and then work directly here on the attributes there. You can change the color here, right? I could make it maybe gray or blue. I want blue. Okay. You can apply materials by going on the color node, and I think many of you know that because of the previous exercise, right? And maybe apply texture if you like, with the file, and then load a texture there or anything else that you would like. I'm going to hit undo. Then the next thing, once you have done the simple materials to this, you want to create lights. Okay, and this is one of the things that I want you to keep remembering in the class, to put shadows on. Okay, so if at all, I'm gonna look at make sure that you have shadows. So let's do spotlights just for the exercise. And where's my spotlight? The spotlight is here. So I'm going to just put it up and kind of rotate it so that it's kind of looking down on my scene. And yeah, it's at the top of the scene. And let's just quickly make a render here, over here in this area here. Notice first that we have what it looks like shadows, but that's not a shadow. That is darkness that happens outside the scope of the light. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the cone angle on that light so that to make it wider. And notice what happens when I render again. Now all my scene is covered, you see? So don't confuse, reach of the spotlight with shadows, okay? And if you notice there's no, I don't see a shadow indication. So go on the shadow section and turn on use depth map shadows, okay? And notice what's gonna happen with the shadows on the scene next, okay? I'm gonna re-render over here. And now we're having shadows on the scene. Okay, this is what I would like to see, shadows over there. One thing that happens is the shadows have very low resolution, so I'm going to increase that to 1024, and notice how it's going to start getting more definition on the shadow. So let's just render again, and you see now the edges are a little bit more defined. So you can keep increasing this number. Be careful not to put it all the way up. It might crash your computer, so make sure you're safe. And that's pretty much it. I want you to experiment with different lights. You have different lights over here that you can change, or you can always come create lights and then try them all. Make sure you have your shadows working. See what's the difference between one or the other. Okay, so this is pretty much a briefing. The videos from the assignment resources go more in depth and add more techniques to this. So I would strongly suggest to go over those as well, now that you have an idea of how to work with this, so that way you complete your assignment. Okay, so have fun, and I look forward to seeing your project.